I don't like MCU movies. I just don't. I haven't really enjoyed them in like a decade, if I'm being honest. I don't want to sit here and sound pretentious or anything like that. I just personally don't enjoy them. My producer dragged me here kicking and screaming, and I was not expecting to make it here to the end of the movie. I didn't think I would survive. It wasn't that bad. It was actually good. It was good. It was a fun movie. James Gunn's latest installment of the Guardians franchise is pretty entertaining. It's well done. I enjoyed it. The first act was a little tough to get through. The second, third act were a lot more entertaining. He just does a competent job. It's still got a ton of that cornball MCU stuff, you know, kind of pockmarked throughout. But I feel like this movie specifically didn't have as much of that, and it made it a lot more interesting on top of entertaining to watch. And from, you know, a more cynical perspective, I really appreciated that. I would say I was even surprised by a lot of scenes and a lot of the directions that the narrative took. It went to a lot of places I wasn't expecting it to. And sure, things weren't always super dark or super off the cuff or anything like that, but it was definitely not something I expected from an MCU film, especially considering the last one I watched was Black Panther 2, and we all know how that went, so. What did stay consistent was the cast. You know, they all do the classic wacky, zany MCU schlock. It's about what you'd expect. Chris Pratt's a great Star-Lord, just keeps doing what he's doing. You know, he's Chris Pratt. I'd say my favorite character was actually Nebula, played by Gillen. It was really entertaining kind of seeing her transition from like a villain to, you know, this very almost positive, fun character to work with. I definitely enjoyed seeing her on screen the most, and she takes this very domineering leadership role sometimes that I really enjoyed watching. Groot, he says one line. Okay. I was most thrilled to watch Chikwudi Uji this time. He's a great actor. He's done a great job in his other properties. He had the best performance in the movie. Hands down, fantastic. So much energy whenever he's on screen, so intense, just absolutely balls to the wall, off the screen, just crazy. He was fantastic. Perfect casting for the role. Not that I think these actors should be wasted on the MCU, but like, he just did a good job because he knocks out everything he does. So if you're not gonna see it for anyone else, see it for him. Best part of the movie for sure. There's definitely a lot I would have changed about the movie if I wanted it to be taken more seriously. I mean, obviously they don't want to. It's, in the end, it's for kids, so there's gonna be parts that are essentially the same. The CGI is definitely one of my biggest pet peeves with the MCU. Everything is green screen. Every freaking scene is a green screen. It's just computer everywhere. Nothing's real. They don't use anything. There's no real environments. It's insane. I just can't believe it. You know, there's the new Mandalorian amphitheater thing. Like, I think that's better. That's fine. But like, what happened to recording on site, like filming somewhere that's interesting, or you know, using set pieces, or just like working with the environment? You don't see any of that anymore, and it's almost disappointing in that regard because it makes some environments that could be really interesting just seem so dull and boring. And the reason why they use CGI is so obvious, because they just want to exploit the labor off of CGI technicians, because it's so much cheaper these days to use underpaid computer artists instead of actually going on set or trying to make something look authentic, because audiences will consume it no matter what. Moving on from effects, the soundtrack is about the same. You know, it's a bunch of oldies, kinda early 2000s, 90s, 80s, whatever, that whole broad range of things, fine. The soundtrack on some parts was pretty lackluster, you know, a lot of standard vocals, intense, like you should take this seriously, but we want you to think this is serious, but it's really not. So we're just gonna put opera music over it, or like violin or something. It just doesn't work. There's so much to be had in the lack of soundtrack that can really bring moments together, and I feel like that's an error that so many directors make, where you can just make a scene blow people away by just putting nothing in the background, and it's so much more powerful. Which does remind me of my next point. Rocket Raccoon's arc, very integral part of the story. Interesting. It was good. That was definitely the part of the story where you don't expect them to go as far as they did. That was probably one of the more entertaining parts of the movie for me, especially because it fleshes out the high evolutioner, the guy that Chikwoody Uji plays. That's where you get a lot of his performances, which again were my favorite parts. It does appear that the cast will be moving on. Dave Bautista specifically said he did not want to be playing Drax anymore. Good for him, considering he has had significantly better performances in movies like Blade Runner, you know, you name it. He has great range, and he deserves much more than what the MCU is offering him. I'm sure there's plenty more appearances these characters will make overall, considering how they love to connect all their movies and everything, and that's great. I just can't wait for some other awful director to just ruin all that and come maybe a few months. So personally, I think it was worth seeing. It's not just, oh, let's see something in theaters, like I guess some Marvel movies out, we'll see it. Like it feels like a movie. Not completely like an authentic movie, but it's almost what a film is supposed to feel like. And I think that's important. So I gotta give James Gunn for props for that. I've had a lot, the light's probably screwing everything up. Oh my God, someone's using their blinkers. I've never seen that before, that's insane. You know how many times I wanna jump out of my car after I put it in park, knock on the window and go, oh yeah, you know that magical lever underneath the steering wheel? Yeah, that's your turn signal. It lets other people know where you are. My freshman year, I almost got hit by a car because I was trying to cross the street and some dude like didn't turn on his turn signal, and it was like a side street, so I thought he wouldn't turn into me. So all of a sudden he swerves in front of me and I have to ditch my board. He runs over my board and breaks it. And then he just like stops for a second, looks back, you know, I'm staring at him like, and then he just keeps driving. I'm like, okay, so I had to get a new skateboard after that. Like, what did Kate? Why do people do that? They have their windows down and then they just like turn up. Like, do you think I want to hear what you're listening to? I don't want you to know what I'm listening to.